Toastmasters, and honored guests. I am definitely not a morning person, and if you need proof for that, I welcome you to talk to any of my coworkers who have ever tried to start a meeting with me before I've hit the coffee pot in the morning. If you need more proof after that, I welcome you to talk to my mother, whom I slapped across the face when I was 11 years old because she tried to wake me up for school by shaking me when I was not ready to wake up. The reason I'm giving you this background information is because I want you to know that I know how crazy it sounds when I tell you that the greatest day I've ever had was one that began when I woke up at 4 o'clock one morning. I want to tell you about the time that I made a new friend, took the most sensational mental snapshot of my entire life, and was involved in a great dance party all before breakfast. And because I'm a big believer in trying things that you think you're not going to like, I hope that my description of my morning glory, my morning of glory, will convince you that sometimes you need to step outside your comfort zone and beautiful things will happen. And I was definitely outside my comfort zone that morning when my travel alarm clock started its monstrous buzzing at 3:45. I was on a study abroad trip through Egypt and had promised my friend Megan that I would go on a hot air balloon ride with her at sunrise over the Nile River. She sneakily waited to tell me that the bus left at 4 until after I had already paid my deposit, but I went ahead with it because, like I mentioned before, I like to try new things, and like I mentioned before, I had already paid my deposit. So I dragged myself out of bed, brushed my teeth, and met the bus downstairs. And luckily, the bus ride was silent because everyone else was just as tired as I was. In fact, the first noise I really heard that morning didn't come until I got to the field where a hot air balloon would be launching from. And I heard the most Satan-like deafening hiss that I've ever heard in my life, and it was coming from the torches that were filling the hot air balloons up with hot air to make them float. I looked out on the pitch dark field and I saw maybe 6 or 7 of these torches, and with each hiss, they'd blow these balloons a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger until there were a few red and green and orange balloons standing upright in their perfect shape. The bus driver then introduced us to our pilot, and right away I knew I was going to like this guy, because here we are, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, we're in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Egypt, and he's dressed in a suit and a hot air balloon tie. And I just really appreciate people who love their jobs. He was really excited to give us a tutorial on the hot air balloon. He answered all of our stupid questions, assured me that I would not be falling out of the balloon, and then helped us into the basket, and we were on our way. And so there, in the middle of the dark, standing next to an open flame, we made our way into the Egyptian sky. And as we got higher and the day got brighter, it became more and more spectacular. Because below us was the lush Nile River Valley, and there were all of these homes and palm trees and fields just packed right along the river's edge. And then about a mile out on each side of the river, these pastures met solid white sand, which extended over hills and valleys as far as the eye could see. And then when the sun finally came up over the snow-white desert, even the little old pilot, my new friend, who I'm sure had seen this at least 100 times, took his eyes off of the ropes and pulley system he was using to sail the balloon, looked out on the horizon, and let out a big sigh. It was absolutely breathtaking. So the descent downward was bittersweet because it was really obviously hard to leave this heavenly scene, but the ride down was actually quite entertaining. I didn't realize on the way up, because it was dark, but the homes that we were floating over were open air, meaning that they didn't have any roofs because we were in the middle of the desert. We got so close to one of the homes on the way down that these 2 little kids stood up from their breakfast table, I guess, stood up on their chairs and started waving and shouting, "Hi, hi." And we finally landed in the desert, and a few farmers rode up on donkeys and surrounded us and tried to talk to us until the crew had finally packed up this balloon on this massive truck. The balloon took up so much space, I couldn't even believe it. So once everything was all packed up, the pilot turned to us, gathered our attention, and announced, "After each landing, We dance! And he threw his hands up into the air as somebody whipped out a drum from nowhere, started pounding on it. The rest of the crew grabbed our hands and started shouting and clapping, and we had a dance party in the middle of the desert. After the song was over, the pilot turned to his dance partner, who was my friend Megan, and said, "It's something new we tried." Something new indeed. You know, sometimes I think about that day and how easy it could have been for me to, like any other day, just push my snooze alarm and miss the hot air balloon trip altogether. And it makes me really sad to think that I could have so easily traded a few extra snores for one of the most unique experiences of my entire life. I learned that day that sometimes you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation if you're going to truly live life to the fullest. And you never know, you could make a new friend, you could see an amazing sunrise, and you could get your boogie on in the middle of the desert. The opportunities are waiting for you. You just have to be ready to say yes. Thank you.